Hello, Packer fans, wherever you may be. It's time for another edition of the Pack Attack Cast. This will be our pregame show for Packers versus Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Also planning on doing a update Sunday right before the game. Once we have the actives, inactives released, we'll have a quick update just to get you up to speed right before the start of the game. But we should be able to cover the majority of the issues you need before the game in the event you were tied up on Sunday. So let's get through it. We're going to look at news, injuries, keys to the game, and matchups for the game. Let's start with the Friday injury report, which is the most closest thing to a clear picture on the injuries we're going to have until the actives and inactives tomorrow, which we'll do another video for. So let's take a look at the injuries for this game. Just share my screen. All right, our injuries for the game brought to you by Packers.com. We have the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to go over people that have game statuses, which really tells the picture. If the way to read these injury reports, if the game status right here says ... that means they're expected to play. So we got Aaron Banks expected to play. Anthony Belton expected to play. He fully participated Thursday and Friday. That's really big for the depth for the Packers on the offensive line because Anthony Belton is a key backup. So having that extra depth as the Packers slowly get healthy is going to be a big thing for this game and for future games. Now, this is a big game, all right? I don't want to take anything away from that. Anybody who's been a Packer fan till the end of time like me knows that Sunday night means more than just a win or a loss, okay? This is about Aaron Rodgers' legacy. It's about people working out their frustrations and feelings about what happened with Aaron Rodgers. And I think this will be a cathartic situation for Packers fans that are torn, okay? I was an Aaron Rodgers fan, do or die, okay? If you had to have me pick which player I liked more, Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre, I got to go with Aaron Rodgers because I think he was the better technician and the better arm. Even though I love Brett Favre's personality and his gunslinger mentality, Aaron Rodgers is the better quarterback. But, in my opinion. But, at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers got a little screwy. He got a little into his head. He got a little into his darkness retreats. He got a little into his stuff offside the field. He got to the point where he was trying to avoid doing the extra things in his game, like getting together with your wide receivers in the offseason, things like that. He just kind of went off into his own little bubble, and then he always came back for the season, and he was a great player, multiple MVPs, but I don't feel like he was the leader that those teams needed. Going that extra mile, that extra step towards the end, so that when he did leave, although I was disappointed to see the player leave, the personality, I wasn't so sad to see go. Now, to be fair, I feel like Aaron Rodgers is kind of back to being focused on football again this year. I don't feel like he was really 100% into the Jets. But I think he sees the end coming, the end of the tunnel coming, and he's like, well, I'm going to put some good stuff on tape to commit to my legacy. Also, Aaron Rodgers has a unique ability there to be one of the few players that have actually defeated every single NFL team, and he can do that with a win this week. Is he going to be around in 4 years to play the Packers again? Who knows? Who knows? The NFL doesn't scheme up the schedule like a lot of people think. It's a very set schedule. So who knows if this is Aaron Rodgers' last chance to beat the Packers. I think it is. So it's so much more than a game. But my original point before I went off on this huge tangent is the Packers need to do well in this game, but it's more important that they're building towards the game versus the Eagles in 2 weeks, because that really is a far more important game to the big scheme of things for the playoffs than the matchup against the Steelers. So emotionally, this is a huge game for me, but the game against the Eagles in 2 weeks, especially after all of the tush-push drama in the offseason, we're going to get a whole bunch of tush-push in that game. So hopefully they're working on a way to beat it. I think we saw the Vikings do a couple unique things a couple weeks ago that might give the Packers some ideas on what to do against the tush-push. But the game against the Eagles in 2 weeks is far more important than this game. But that being said, there's every reason to believe the Packers can win this game. I think unless Aaron Rodgers wills the Steelers to a victory all by himself, the Packers should win this game. So let's go back to the injury report. Again, long tangent. Warren Brinson, questionable. That is big because our defensive tackle rotation is very thin right now. Matthew Golden is questionable with a not listed injury and limited participation. Looks like it is actually a hip injury. So hip injuries are kind of unique, okay? Anybody who's had hip injuries will tell you it's really a nerve injury 9 times out of 10 when you're talking about a hip. So you could wake up, Matthew Golden could wake up on Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning before the walkthrough and be like, I feel fine. Or he might have a ton of pain there and then they give him some pain injections and he's fine. Or it might be a situation where he's actually out in this game. If I had to guess, I would say 80% that Matthew Golden does play in this game. If I had to put a percentage on it, but we're going to find out an hour and a half before when we see the inactives. Because if Golden isn't playing, he'll be inactive because he doesn't really have a lot of value to be active if he's not going to be a key starter in the game. So we'll see what happens there. Nate Hobbs is expected to play. Josh Jacobs is expected to play. Josh Jacobs had limited participation all this week. I think that's because they're trying to get him to recover from this recurring calf injury. But he will be good to go in this game. And I do expect the running game to be a really big factor, and we'll talk about that later when we go through matchups and keys to the game. But I think Josh Jacobs is not going to be a snap count guy. I think they have to let him run, let him cook in this situation, because the running game is really a big part of this game, trying to find ways to keep Aaron Rodgers off of the field. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So Xavier McKinney, full participation. He should be fine with an ankle knee injury. Brandon McManus, this is really big. Did not participate Wednesday, participated Thursday, participated Friday, but they were limited, and he will be questionable for the game. So my thoughts on this are the Packers know they have a very solid backup quarterback. If McManus is not feeling very comfortable out there, then I think they sit him for one more week and bring him back against the Panthers. So we'll have to watch that very closely with the actives and inactives on Sunday afternoon. Lucas Van Ness is out with a foot injury. He did not participate all week. Hopefully he can be back again before the Eagles game. That's got to be the mantra. If I'm Matt LaFleur, and I'm talking to the medical folks, and they ask my opinion. Now, I know Matt LaFleur likes to believe, he likes to throw it off and say, oh, well, that's up to the medical staff. That's up to the medical staff. But I guarantee you that the Packers and the medical staff and Matt LaFleur have a discussion, and it would not surprise me a bit if Matt LaFleur said, look, our goal is to have as many players healthy by the Eagles game, because that is by far the biggest game coming up in the next couple of weeks. Quay Walker fully participated all this week despite getting a neck stinger. He will be fine for this week, which is really big. Now, one important note, and we're going to go through this in the matchups, but Quay Walker is super important in how they use him this week, because I love that they used Quay Walker as a rusher last week, and he was very effective. But the problem was, part of that allowed McBride to get open for 2 touchdowns and a lot of yardage. And the Steelers actually have 3 very good tight ends, and tight end coverage is going to be so important in this game. So, as much as I loved Quay Walker rushing the quarterback last week, I think Quay Walker and Cooper need to be focused on covering tight ends this week. Quay Walker and Cooper both have the physical ability to match up very well against these tight ends. They should be faster, they should be stronger, they should be able to cover these tight ends, because that's a really big part of the offense for the Steelers, and we'll get to that in a minute. Dontavian Wicks is out in this game. Christian Watson is questionable. He had limited participation Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I do believe Christian Watson will go in this game. I think Christian Watson has been ready for quite some time. They're being extra careful with him, especially since they just signed him to a new contract for 2026. But I think Christian Watson will be in this game. I think he'll see 15 to 20 snaps as he gets back into the groove, again, before the Eagles game. You're going to hear this theme from me until you're so sick of it. You're going to say, Jeff, I'm sick of hearing about this Eagles game. We're talking about the Steelers. We're talking about the Panthers next week. No, the Eagles game is so huge for this team as a statement game for playoff positioning. Just a big quality win at home. That game is going to be huge. So huge, I'm actually taking the day off before that game so I can really focus on getting ready for that game. So Wicks is out. Evan Williams is going to play, no question about that. And Devontae Wyatt, limited participation Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and he is questionable in this game. Now, how this is important, and you'll see this in the Sunday activations. Actually, Saturday, they'll actually elevate, possibly. So you want to see Devontae Wyatt or Brinson or both able to play in this game. If one of them is going to be out, or there's a chance that one can't make it through the whole game, look for them to elevate a defensive tackle on Saturday when activations happen, and then we will see what happens. And, that's one thing I wish the NFL would give the teams more flexibility on, is doing the activations from the practice squad on Sunday when they do the active inactives, because it really kind of tips the Packers' plans when the day before they either elevate somebody or they don't elevate somebody. If they don't elevate a defensive tackle from the practice squad on Saturday, that means at least Wyatt or Brinson are going to play. Hopefully both of them play, because Wyatt is really a big part of our run defense, and the Steelers are going to try to pound the rock in this game, 100%. Now let's take a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game. We've got Calvin Austin 3. he fully participated, he will play. Zach Frazier, the center, had limited participation on Wednesday, didn't participate on Thursday, and limited participation on Friday. I believe he is truly going to be a game time decision, and that's a big part of the comfort level for the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. If their center is out, that means they're going to have a backup center come in. That's going to change some of the chemistry and mechanics for Aaron Rodgers in the game. I think that's a really big thing. Plus, a backup center is probably going to be vulnerable to the pass rush up the middle. So you might see, if there's a backup center in there, you might see Micah Parsons rush from the inside a lot and try to force that backup center to stop Micah Parsons. We have Malik Harrison, fully participated Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He is listed as questionable with a knee, but the fact that he participated fully for 3 days tells me he's probably going to play. Cam Hayward got a lot of rest this week. He rested on Wednesday and Thursday. He participated on Friday, so he should be good to go. That's just some veteran rest. Will Howard, the backup quarterback, is questionable. That's not going to be a big impact in this game. Metcalf got some rest on Wednesday, Thursday, and was a full participant on Friday, so he should be good in this game. Scotty Miller is out with a finger injury. TJ Watt, this was really big. Early in the week, there was some rumors that TJ Watt might not play in this game. He did not participate on Wednesday. He limited participation on Thursday, and on Friday he was a full participant. So I do expect TJ Watt to be at 100% for this game. I think this is a lot of veteran rest. It does list a hip injury, but like I said with Matthew Golden, hip injuries can be great one day, horrible the next. The day after that, you feel better. Then the day after that, you sleep the wrong way, and the next thing you know, you're in pain. But hip injuries are things that most players can work around. So look for a couple things on Saturday, okay? There are a couple things we want to see. Number one, Christian Watson should be activated to the active roster on Saturday. That's the end of his window. He either has to go to the active roster or go on injured reserve for the rest of the year. That's not going to happen. He's going to be playing in this game on limited snaps, so expect him to be activated on Saturday, and then watch very closely if the Packers bring up a defensive tackle on Saturday, because that tells us that one or two of those defensive tackles that we just talked about is not going to play. All right. Now let's talk about some keys to this game, Packers fans. We're going to go over keys to the game for the Packers and keys to the game for the Steelers, because both things matter. You know, the Packers could get all their keys to the game and steamroll the Steelers. The Steelers could get all their keys to the game and the Packers do not, and the Steelers will steamroll the Packers, or both of them will do well on some of their keys to the game, and we're going to have a competitive game. I think this is going to be a very close game. I'm going to have my prediction for the game at the very end, but let's talk about some keys to the games for both teams. Number one, Jordan Love's efficiency for the Packers. He's completing 70% of his passes with 108 plus passer rating so far this season. Very impressive numbers. He's on the cusp of being in the MVP conversation. If he has a couple game-winning weeks, you know, if he plays well against the Steelers, he plays well against the Panthers, then he plays well and helps the Packers beat the Eagles on that big Monday night matchup, then he can sneak into that MVP conversation. He's on the outside looking in right now, but he's like at the doorway of the MVP conversations, especially if you look at quick passes. Quick passes, he is at almost 90% of completion rate on quick passes. So look for the Steelers to be rushing the passer with TJ Watt, and look for Jordan Love to be focused on getting the ball out quickly with the quick game, because I don't think the Steelers have as good of a secondary as we saw last week against the Cardinals. The Steelers do have big names in their secondary, and we'll talk about that later, but they're not playing that great. So I do feel like the Packers' quick game is going to be important, but Jordan Love just has to be a solid, efficient quarterback on game day. Josh Jacobs' ground game is going to be really big in this game. I'm hoping. Now, one of the reasons the Packers had trouble on Sunday, and I know because I was at that game on Sunday, was the fact that Josh Jacobs was on a pitch count. We would be driving. Next thing you know, another running back is in there. A drive will stall. Those are the type of situations where if you have Josh Jacobs, he will break a tackle and get some extra yardage. He will catch a pass out of the backfield and make a big play to continue a drive. So Josh Jacobs not being on a pitch count, which I hope will be the case this week, I think Josh Jacobs can be a really big part of this game. He has 414 rushing yards through 6 games. We need to get that up closer to an average of 80 yards per game. Right now, he's doing about 70, 73 yards per game. An extra 10 yards would be a huge factor for the Packers. If we could keep the Steelers defense honest, it really helps Jordan Love with the play action. When you have Josh Jacobs in the backfield, okay, the Steelers know, we got to honor the running game because he can break off a long run any play. Other players, they're saying, okay, it's 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. They're going to absolutely pass the ball, and it really impacts the play action for Jordan Love. So hopefully Josh Jacobs can have a good game in this game and keep the defense for the Steelers balanced and focused on stopping the run and the pass. Protecting the ball is very important for the Packers. So we haven't seen as many turnovers as we would like from this defense, and those game-changing turnovers are really big. So that means Jordan Love has to protect the ball. They only have 2 interceptions the whole season, so Jordan Love is doing great about protecting the ball. In fact, he should only really have 1 interception, because that 1 interception where he should have thrown the ball away 2 games ago really was a bad play. And I'm sure he learned from that. But 2 interceptions this far into the season is not bad. But what they don't have on the other side of the ball is the turnovers on defense. So they need to protect the ball carefully. And I think a turnover or 2 in this game could really make the difference. And we know Aaron Rodgers threw 2 interceptions last week. So is he going to be more prone to taking chances because he's playing Green Bay this week and he really wants to win? So it could be that an Aaron Rodgers interception at some point in this game is the turning point in this game. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. For the Steelers, red zone execution for the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers has 14 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Against the Packers defense that averages about 21 points per game allowed, capitalizing inside the red zone is super critical for the Steelers. Again, we're going to talk about the 3 tight ends later on when we talk about matchups, but it's very important that the Packers cover all these tight ends for the Steelers, because they typically make their hay with 1 wide receiver, which is Metcalf, and the 3 tight ends. Those are the big things that really drive this passing attack for the Steelers. So we need to cover all those tight ends every passing down. Um, so the Steelers' running game is going to be very important in this game. Their leading running back, Jaylen Warren, is getting 4.4 yards per carry. This is very important. The Packers need to have a strong pass rush this week. Try to get that yards per carry closer to 3 instead of 4. And the last thing we want is for that yards per carry to get to 5 or 6. So if the Packers can keep the yards per carry on in the running attack for the Steelers to around 3 yards per carry, it will be really big for this game. And the Steelers have to get TJ Watt to collapse the pocket against Jordan Love. If they can't get pressure on Jordan Love, I think this is going to be a long day for the Steelers defense. So we're going to have to see if the offensive line for the Packers, which has been playing better the last couple weeks as it gets healthy, can keep TJ Watt from making too many big plays in this game that are going to impact the game. All right, let's look at some key matchups for the game. We're going to take a look at Jordan Love versus TJ Watt. We just talked about that. If TJ Watt is a disruptor, it's going to be a big problem for Jordan Love. If the offensive line can contain TJ Watt, and we've seen them contain really good pass rushers before, if they can manage TJ Watt in this game, then Jordan Love will pick the secondary apart in this game. Josh Jacobs against the run defense for the Steelers. That's going to be a huge matchup in this game. Josh Jacobs is a master at breaking tackles, finding ways to get a couple extra yards that he shouldn't get in a play. Or if the offensive line isn't blocking up the play, sometimes he will just take the play outside and make a play all by himself. That's why Josh Jacobs is the number 1 rated running back per PFF right now, because his ability to produce beyond what the offensive line blocks. And that's really crucial in this game against the Steelers. We've got Romeo Doubs and Matthew Golden versus Darius Slay. Darius Slay is a big name. He's a very savvy player, but he doesn't have the wheels to keep up with Romeo Doubs or Matthew Golden. So Slay is going to have to use his veteran savvy to keep himself in this game against those two players. Next, we have Aaron Rodgers versus Quay Walker and Xavier McKinney. Rodgers' ability to manipulate safeties is legendary. There is no better quarterback, in my opinion, at manipulating a defense than Aaron Rodgers. So McKinney and Quay Walker and Cooper are going to be really keys to this game. They need to not let Aaron Rodgers manipulate them into getting players open. They need to stay true to their defensive scheme and play as a unit. Okay? Aaron Rodgers has a great ability to get safeties to move where they're not supposed to move. But Xavier McKinney knows this defense, and he knows all these tricks that Aaron Rodgers is very good at. So hopefully McKinney will avoid being tricked by Aaron Rodgers with his eyes. Steelers offensive line versus Packers defensive line. Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary need to have a game this week. I know Micah Parsons had a huge game last week. Hopefully he's going to continue that into this week. There are some weaknesses in the Steelers offensive line, but either Rashawn Gary or Micah Parsons needs to get Aaron Rodgers on the ground at least 5 or 6 times a game. This game, I'm not just talking about sacks. I'm talking about quarterback hits, because that's really going to be a big factor in this game. By the way, the Packers currently lead the NFL in tackles for loss, so they're doing really good about getting players in the backfield down for a loss. whether it's the quarterback or the running back or a receiver on a jet screen or a jet sweep, something along those lines. They do a really good job of causing losses in the backfield, which puts the offense in third and long situations. So we're going to watch that very closely. And one more, Packers secondary versus Aaron Rodgers. Okay. One of the things we saw in that game last week against the Cardinals is they converted third and long far too many times. You should never have a 3rd and 23 completed against this defense, yet it happened last week. So the secondary has got to hold up long enough on third down that they can actually get to the quarterback. This is a really big deal on Sunday night. So bottom line, between keys to the game, this is a clash between eras. It's Jordan Love versus his mentor. And this is really important to keep in mind, okay? I love Aaron Rodgers as a player. I didn't love him as a personality, but I do love his relationship with Jordan Love. Because even though he was frustrated with the front office for the selection of Jordan Love, he embraced Jordan Love and helped him become a better player. So I would love to see a situation at the end of the game. The Packers are going to win, of course. Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre are going to embrace. Hopefully they switch jerseys. I think that would be an amazing moment for Jordan Love and for Aaron Rodgers to exchange jerseys at the end of this game. I know Micah Parsons said he would like to trade jerseys with Aaron Rodgers, but I just think it would be a special moment for everybody involved if Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love exchanged jerseys in this game. It would really be a changing of the guard. I do think that Packers fans still love Aaron Rodgers. I love Aaron Rodgers, the player. Aaron Rodgers, the personality, drives me crazy. So it would be nice to see the Packers win. The Packers can say, hey, Aaron, I feel like we've healed. We're ready to move on. We've played each other. Have a good rest of your career. We're happy with Jordan Love, and that wound of Aaron Rodgers leaving just kind of heals for the Packers. He's said nice things about the Packers this week. Jordan Love has said nice things about Aaron Rodgers. Matt LaFleur has said nice things about Aaron Rodgers. But once the game starts, the Packers need to dominate Aaron Rodgers in this game. I don't know if they will, but we're going to talk about my prediction right at the end of the game. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this game. We're going to look at the matchups in this game. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. All right. Here we go. We're looking at the matchups in this game. We're going to look at the overall trends for the teams, and then we're going to go into the lineups and look at the matchups for this game. So right now, the Packers are 4th in power rank per PFF. Steelers are 16th. Defense, very close in this game. Packers are 15th. Steelers are 16th. Now, I think the Packers have more upside in their defense. I think this Packers defense by the end of the season can be a top 5 defense. The Steelers kind of are what they are. They have some okay parts. They have some aging secondary players, and they have TJ Watt. The Packers, at the end of the season, I think have enough tools to be a top 5 defense. And I would love the defense to be the difference maker in this game. On offense, the Packers are 4th. Steelers are 10th. That's close enough that this is going to be a big battle. Strength of schedule, the Packers are 24th, and the Steelers are at 31st. A lot of the Steelers' 31st strength of schedule is the fact that their division is not really that scary right now. Okay. When the Bengals are second in your division with a losing record, not a lot of threats coming out of your division. Whereas the Green Bay Packers have had a very tough opening schedule, especially in the division. They have some huge games that are coming up. So strength of schedule, I think, is about right. Offensive snaps. Packers have a big advantage here of almost 9 more snaps on offense than the Steelers. That's a whole drive. That's the difference between winning by a field goal or a touchdown in this game. So I think offensive snaps are going to be a big part of this game. Running plays, very open, very equal. Both teams are at about 42% at running plays and 58% on pass plays. So both teams are very balanced, and it's going to have a lot to do with what they do with the plays. And let's look at EPA per run. Steelers are doing a little better at EPA per run, but the Packers have done better in the run game in the last couple of weeks. So I consider that probably a neutral matchup. But EPA per pass, this is where it's big, and this is where Aaron Rodgers can be the difference maker in this game. We get more EPA per pass, almost double than the Steelers. In fact, it is double. So the Packers make more out of each pass play than the Steelers by about 100%. So big plays in the passing game are definitely in the favor of the Packers in this game. Quarterback comparison, Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. Look at that. Jordan Love is ranked higher. He has a higher passer rating clean. He has a lower passer rating under pressure than Aaron Rodgers. So one trend we've seen in the NFL, we've seen it with Joe Flacco and we've seen it with Aaron Rodgers, is their ability to get rid of the ball quickly. And I think Jordan Love needs to lean into that this week and get the ball out quickly, because he is not as efficient under pressure as Aaron Rodgers. Big time throw percentage. Packers have a slight advantage there with Jordan Love. Turnover worthy plays. Aaron Rodgers is more likely to put the ball at risk than Jordan Love. That's a big thing, because Aaron Rodgers has been a massive Hall of Fame player when it comes to avoiding turnovers. But he is more likely to have a turnover in this game than Aaron Rodgers. And I do think an interception or a fumble or something along those lines is going to be a big factor in this game between these two very equally balanced teams. Power rank between the two players, Jordan Love is seventh highest rated quarterback for PFF. Aaron Rodgers is 16th. So again, Jordan Love has every opportunity to be a difference maker in this game. So let's watch that very closely. Now let's take a look at the lineups here. We'll start out with the Steelers on offense. We're going to go to 2 tight ends, which really doesn't tell the story for the Packers and the Steelers, because they actually have 3 tight ends that are very good as receivers. But let's take a look at how these 2 lineups are playing. McKinney and Williams are both playing very well. McKinney is a top 10 safety. Williams is a top 10 safety. McKinney is only 24th, but that's just because people don't throw the ball on McKinney's side of the field. Look for McKinney to be shaded over heavily to where DJ Metcalf is on the field. If Metcalf is on the left side, look for McKinney to shade over to the left side, and vice versa. So McKinney, I think, will follow wherever Metcalf goes in this game, which means the rest of the players need to tackle well, because McKinney, I think, is really going to be focused on stopping DJ Metcalf. All of our linebackers are playing very well. McDuffie is playing well at linebacker 3. And I think you might see more base in this game than you normally would because the Packers need to be cognizant that the 3 tight ends for the Steelers are really a big part of their offense. So look for the Packers to play a lot of base defense in this game because it gives them the best opportunity to cover those tight ends for the Steelers. Cooper's playing well. Walker's playing well. McDuffie in limited snaps is playing very well. So I think this is going to be a matchup that they have to win. The Packers have to limit big plays from the tight ends from the Steelers. They're going to get a couple catches, but if they have to limit the big plays. Let's look at Nate Hobbs is the biggest weakness I see for the Packers defense. So Nate Hobbs versus Metcalf is a big mismatch for us. That's why McKinney needs to be providing additional help if Hobbs is on Metcalf. I believe Keyshawn Nixon versus Metcalf is more of a neutral matchup, but Nixon is not going to travel with Metcalf. So it's going to be wherever Metcalf is, they're going to have to shade additional coverage over to that side of the field. For the defensive line, we've got Micah Parsons playing well. Kobe Wooden is playing out of his mind at defensive tackle right now. He's actually the 19th rated defensive tackle. For a guy who wasn't expected to see major snaps and was almost a cutdown victim, that's really big news. Brooks has also played very solidly at defensive tackle. But if we can get Devontae Wyatt back into this lineup, it's going to be a big improvement for this defense before the Eagles game. Rashawn Gary is playing very solid. So let's look at the Steelers. And we're really looking at 2 tight end sets because I think we're going to see a lot of 2 or 3 tight end sets for the Steelers. You've got Metcalf on one side. You've got Austin the third on the other side. He's not really that much of a threat, but it's these tight ends, Washington and Smith, that are really big X factors in this game. If the Packers can stop these tight ends from making big plays, then I think this game will go well. Looking at the offensive line, their left tackle is not playing well, and their right tackle is not playing well. So if we can get pressure from Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons on these tackles, and we get some additional pressure on the interior, especially if Frazier does not play, it's going to be a good night for the Packers defense. Then, of course, we have Aaron Rodgers and Warren, who's the 5th rated halfback in this game. He's been very solid and consistent in his production. So it's strength versus strength there. Both teams are going to try to run the ball. Let's look at nickel and 3 wide for the Steelers. Okay, this is where you get a big advantage for the Packers, in my opinion. Javon Bullard has been playing very good in the slot. We also have Nate Hobbs, who could play in the slot, with Carrington Valentine coming in and playing outside corner. But you move their number 3 wide receiver, Wilson, not that great. Austin in the slot, and Metcalf on the outside. Again, Metcalf really is the big factor here, and we have Smith. So if the Packers can get the Steelers to 3rd and long and they're able to play in their nickel defense, I think that's a big advantage for the Packers in this matchup, because the Steelers would really love to play 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, and run the ball and then have a quick passing game with the tight ends and Metcalf. That's going to be a big part of the game. Let's take a look at the Steelers and the Packers. Let's look at 2 tight end matchup for two tight end lineup for the Packers. Clark and Elliott are playing very solid at safety. We've got Slay, who's not looking that great on one corner, and we have Jalen Ramsey as the other corner, who's playing very solid. And we'll have to see if Darius Slay can be the weak point in a two tight end set. I think the weakness here is whoever Darius Slay is playing against, a quick pass to a wide receiver at full speed could be a big play at any moment. Their linebackers are not playing that great. So this is really a great matchup for Tucker Kraft to have a really big game against these linebackers here. They're not great coverage linebackers. They're great against the run, but not very good against the pass here. Okay, so let's look at coverage grade for Patrick Queen, 32.9. That is a huge weakness for the Steelers. Oh, hold on, let me get back to that. I screwed everything up. 1 second. All right, Wilson also has similar problems with coverage. So this is going to be a huge game for Tucker Kraft to make hay in the middle of the field against these very subpar linebackers. We've got Highsmith and Watt. These are your pass rushers. Highsmith has been okay this year. He hasn't been as impactful as in past years. TJ Watt is your 20th rated defensive end. And their defensive line does very good against the run with Hayward, Benton, and Harmon. So getting runs against this defensive line is going to be super critical. Looking at the wide receivers for the Packers, Golden is playing better each week. Romeo Doubs is solid. Tucker Kraft is a big part of being an X factor in this game. And as the offensive line for the Packers gets healthy, their numbers are going up. Walker's been playing better. Zach Tom is playing better now that he's healthy. Jordan Morgan is learning how to play right guard. I think he's playing better than that number would indicate. Elton Jenkins is playing okay at center, not as good as I expected. And Aaron Banks has been a disappointment so far at left guard. Hopefully that will improve over time. Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs. So let's go to three wide receivers. And we'll look at the nickel defense for the Steelers. Okay, this is where we're going to have an advantage here because that brings Joey Porter onto the field. Joey Porter and Darius Slay are not playing well at cornerback right now. So if we get Joey Porter and Slay on one-on-one coverage, that's a big matchup advantage for any of our wide receivers. You would see Romeo Doubs on the outside, along with Christian Watson and Matthew Golden in the slot. This is a advantageous matchup across the board for the Packers. They have an advantage in two tight end sets and three wide receiver sets against this defense. So the Packers should be consistently successful throughout this game. So that's your key matchups for the game, and we've taken a look at how each of the players are playing overall. So now let's switch over to switch screens. My prediction for this game. Okay? My predicted outcome is that this is going to be a very balanced game. I would love to see the Packers put this game away with a big win against Aaron Rodgers. But I think Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame player. They have TJ Watt, who's a great passer, offense disruptor. I think the Packers are going to win this game, but they're going to win it by 3 points or less. Packers 26, Steelers 23 is my prediction. So right now, that's exactly what the spread is in this game, 3 points. So if I was looking at the Packers and giving up the points, I would probably push that and not give up the points in this game. My parlay of the week, and I'm going to have that posted tomorrow. So check it out if you enjoy my parlays. Next, I think you take the Packers to win with the over in this game. Packers plus the over gives you 2-1 odds versus giving up the points for the Packers. So I expect the Packers to win by 3 or less, and I'm looking at Packers 26, Steelers 23 as my most likely suggestion for the margin in this game. Now, the Packers could easily win this game by 10, or they could lose this game by 10. It really comes down to the players on game time, and it's going to be a really fun matchup. So that's going to wrap up our pregame show for this game. Once again, I'm going to have an update for you tomorrow afternoon once we get the inactives and actives. I'll also have my parlay for the game. I'm waiting for those active and inactives to see if they will impact my parlay before I put that together. So we're going to have that tomorrow as well. So come back tomorrow before the game. We're going to have our inactives and actives and how that impacts the game, and then also our parlay plays for the game. We'll see you then. As always, go Pack Go. This is going to be a classic game. This could be a game that the Packers fans either talk about for years or they want to forget. It's really going to have to do with how the players decide things on the field on Sunday night. But it's going to be a great game. So tune in, enjoy it on Sunday night. As always, we're going to have our reaction show on Monday morning. Hopefully it'll be a victory Monday. We'll see what happens there. But if the Packers want to keep pace in the division, they need to win this game. It's very important for that reason. So go Pack Go. Let's get a victory on Sunday Night Football. We'll talk to you next time.